Welcome to another episode of the Adrienne Ross Show, where sports and culture connect. You know, when the Indiana Fever plays a game at night, if they lose the game, I don't have a whole lot of time to mull over the loss. You go to bed eventually. When the Fever plays during the day, like 11 o'clock in the morning, Central Time, and they lose the game, you've got all these hours to mull over the loss. So away with these early games. In any case, I mentioned in the video I did earlier that I may or may not say more because I said a whole lot during the live stream of the Indiana Fever versus the Valkyries. But I did say that I had seen some of the post-game conference with Lexie Hull and Caitlin Clark, and perhaps I would come back and talk some more about it. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to play the part of the post-game where Lexie and Caitlin are talking, and I may play some of Stephanie White's portion, but I'll be stopping along the way and giving you my reaction to what was said. As I said earlier, I feel like the young ladies said some things that I just thought were worth looking at deeper. And so I'm going to play, I'm going to stop, I'm going to give you my take. And like again, if you were with the live stream or watched the live stream later, you know exactly how I feel. And if you did not see that, then it's obviously on right here on YouTube. So go ahead and check out my thoughts. But let's get to this post game. So we're going to go to the Indiana Fever's YouTube page and jump right in it.
Caitlin, we'll start with you. Just how did it, first of all, feel to be out there? And second of all, what do you think the offense was just so disjointed here today?
It felt good to be out there. I thought we started really well. I thought we were competitive. I thought we played with energy in the first 5 minutes. And then, when they kind of went on their first run, it kind of deflated us a little bit, which I'm not really sure why. But
you got to stop here because she was absolutely right. The start of the game was not the problem. We were in the live chat. We're looking at how they're playing defense. And then obviously, if you're playing defense, you're able to do the plan, which is to run. But of course, you've got to play good defense. And they did. They started out well. But then Caitlin used the term deflated. I guess that's a good word for it.
The offense, I think, for us, like, it starts on defense. And we, struggled, scouting report wise, we struggled personnel, we struggled to do what the coaches asked of us. And then, overall, like, they just played with more energy and effort. And, those are the things that just can't happen. So, it's every single person on our team, and, nobody played well today. And, you should look yourself in the mirror and find ways where you can get better and come back to practice tomorrow and then play again on Friday.
So Caitlin just reiterated what I said, and that I said something I say all the time, but I understand that not everyone gets it. And so I've done my best to try to explain this. And so Caitlin just made it simple. And that is, for us, it starts with our defense. And she's right. This is a team that plays best when running a fast-paced game. That's what Caitlin loves to do. It's what the team loves to do. That's the team's strength. That's what we love to watch. So when you don't see that, it's not some conspiracy theory, and they're all out there that the coach is trying to slow them down. It's that the desire is to play fast, and to do that, you have to get stops on the defensive end. It's defense to offense. The team, they know that, which is one reason why defense has been preached over and over again with this team, so that you can get out there and do what you have to do. And like Caitlin said, they did not play well after the beginning, and that's an understatement. It was horrendous for much of this game. We'll get more into that. But before we go back to this video, hey, I gotta say Caitlin is right when she said we got another game. Like, that's the one thing I think I heard Kelsey say early in the season when she started off really badly. She was just like, the thing about this league is that there are so many games that you don't really have time to sit there and sulk and all that. You've got to turn it around. Anything can happen in just a couple nights, as Caitlin points out, because there's a game today. Obviously, Wednesday they had a game. There's a game Friday. There's a game Sunday. There's not a lot of in between time. You don't have a lot of time to sulk. You got to get back at it.
Caitlin, how do you feel from a conditioning standpoint? And then for Lexie, defensively, why do you think you all were so disjointed that maybe led to some of those, I guess, 3-point shooting for them, really?
Yeah, I mean, it's going to take me a second to get my win back. Like I said, there's not really anything that can replicate it than a true game. And, I felt pretty good. I was trying to play, shorter stints, but, sometimes it's almost harder to sit on the bench and then come back into the game. So it's just kind of finding a balance of that. But,
and just want to add here, if you did not see Scott Agnes's post-game comments, he put together a nice video there, post-game comments, and he mentioned that within just a few minutes of the game, Caitlin did turn to the bench and she asked for a sub, and that is to be expected. Like she said, it's going to take a while. And yes, they practiced. I guess she practiced a couple times. I played 5-on-5 and practiced, but you really, it's hard to duplicate a game situation. And so that's what Caitlin said. But I thought that was really interesting too. She said, so you need a break, right? You're coming back from injury, you're gassed, you need a break. But at the same time, then when you're not in the game, then you got to get back into a flow again. You get back into a rhythm again. And that's why I say over and over again, we have to understand that this team is not under normal circumstances. They've had so many injuries, so many disruptions, and then now they got to go out there and play. Some who've never played together, trying to work. I said before, I said, listen, I love that they're playing better. I said that when I was on vacation. I did a little video, a live stream or whatever it was I did, and I said, that's looking great. I said, but then it's going to be more because Caitlin's going to come back, and then now you got to switch up rotations again. And so she's in the situation, of course, where she's just trying to be able to catch her breath. All right, let's keep going.
I'm just trying to get my legs under me there in the fourth quarter and get my win back a little bit, which will come over the next few games. But yeah.
I would say defensively, Caitlin kind of mentioned it. Our coaches do a great job of giving us scout on every player. And I think collectively we didn't do a good job at taking away the stuff that their team likes to do and making them do things they don't want to do. We didn't do a good job of that. We also gave up some timely offensive rebounds that they do a great job of kicking it out, getting open looks, getting open threes late in the game. I think it really just comes down to effort and us not locking in mentally and following the scouting report.
I have to stop here because this is the absolute truth. We can point fingers here and there, and lots of fans are doing it. I stay away from listening to a whole lot because I already know. I see it in the chat. I see titles of things. I know exactly where it's going. And you guys know me. I like to avoid a lot of stuff until I can express my own thoughts. And I think Lexie Hull is being absolutely honest there. And if you watch the game, you can't disagree with her. The effort wasn't there. They did not play like a team on fire. They did not play like they had a sense of urgency. Honestly, they really didn't play with a sense of pride. Now, some parts of it you can't help. Sometimes you have a bad shooting day. I want to say night, but they played in the morning my time. So sometimes that happens, but the effort has to be there all the time. And they didn't have it. The offensive rebounds they gave up, 10 offensive rebounds in the second half. So Lexie is letting you know. So all the narratives, all the agendas being pushed out there. Listen, we had the scouting report and we didn't follow it. We knew what we were supposed to do. We didn't execute. And that's what I saw with my own two eyes as well. And so, let's continue.
Kind of off that note, Lexie, you guys had such a great week last week with, the big wins and then having some of these losses recently. Do you feel like that's just a matter of inconsistency when you kind of look at like what you guys are capable of and kind of where you are at right now, and how do you guys, is it going back to that effort and that energy that you feel like is the biggest difference between like where you guys are at your height and where you are like right now?
For sure. I think, our team, we have a lot of inconsistency. We raise to the occasion when we're playing for 30,000, and then we need to bring that level of focus and that level of energy every single day. It's really hard to win in this league. And I think,
I have to stop there because Lexie Hull just dropped a bomb. If you didn't catch that, the 30,000 she's referring to are dollars. The Commissioner's Cup, where the players were going to get about $30,000. She's calling them all out. We're playing hard. We're digging deep when there's $30,000 on the line. But what about this game? What about every game? Now, I've been one who said that in the women's game, it's not about money because they're not used to making a whole lot of money. They play for the enjoyment and for the pride and for all that. But I've come to understand that whether you're talking about Unrivaled, and if you watched Unrivaled and the tournaments they had in Unrivaled, they were busting their tails for money. Okay, they wanted money. And she's basically saying like this, that you showed something when money was on the line, direct extra money was on the line. I thought that was that's like chopping your legs off right there. When I say that, I mean giving you a good hit in the leg, just calling it like it is, and ouch, it hurts. But is there truth to it? Are they not as willing to go all out when it's another game? I don't know, but I took note of what she said right there.
Need to focus every game because all of these games matter when September, October comes. So it's really just going to come to us, and we really need to regroup, turn the page, learn from this, and come with a better mindset on Friday.
Yeah.
And if I'm a member of the Indiana Fever, I'm listening to Lexie Hull because Lexie Hull generally brings great effort. You all know that. We've seen it. Whether it's last season, whether it's this season, she's going to be doing all the things, even the things that don't show up in a box score. That's Lexie Hull. Tonight, though, or today, this morning, this afternoon, wherever your time zone is, it was just lacking throughout. And when I say throughout, I mean throughout the team.
Yeah, Lexie, is there any mindset change for you coming off the bench versus starting, or how does that change things for you, if at all?
It doesn't. I think, just coming out and doing what I'm asked to the best of my ability. We play with a million rotations, so it doesn't really change much when we're out on the court, regardless of whether I'm starting or not. And I think just, coming out with as much effort as I can.
I have to say that when the game started and the game was about to start, they put up the starting lineups. I was surprised to see that Lexie was not in the starting lineup. I didn't blow a gasket about it because I totally understood why. I heard what Caitlin Clark had said. I did my video like 4 o'clock in the morning. I had done a video about Caitlin talking about the play, talking about playing with Ari. I heard what Stephanie White said about it. I understand that Caitlin is coming back from injury. And I understand that Ari's been playing well. She likes to get up and down the floor. She plays good defense. She pushes pace. And so I can totally understand why you would want to put those two together on the floor and also have another ball handler because they are riding Caitlin. They're grabbing her. They're holding her. They're doubling her. They're blitzing, all the things that we have seen and saw in this game too, without the officials being very on point either. Imagine that. And so I get that with her coming back from injury, particularly, you want to relieve some of the pressure. So I didn't blow a gasket over it. I thought it might be good. Caitlin had talked about it previously before about how it's going to be helpful, but not all the time, right? You can't have the ball out of her hand all the time. But between the two of them, I get it. I get it. But when I first saw that, I'm like, right, like Lexie's been being Lexie. But the thing about Lexie too is if you're trying to put that in to relieve some of the pressure on Caitlin and put those two speed angels, I thought I was going to say speed demon. No, we don't do demons. Speed angels out there together and reserve some of Caitlin's energy. The player who can come in off the bench and still give you energy is typically Lexie Hull. So I get all that. but I did kind of like about that, but I couldn't hate on it because I totally get it. But Lexie is Lexie, and that is, wherever you put me, I'm going to do my best to produce, and she usually does.
For either of you, I feel like we've, over the last several weeks, heard several times you got to know personnel, you didn't know the scouting report. How long do you feel like this has been a continued theme that you guys are trying to overcome?
Yeah, I mean, I think that just speaks to what Lexie just said, our inconsistency, and that's on us.
I have to correct him because they haven't said that they didn't know the scouting report or even understand the scouting report. They said they haven't executed the scouting report. Lexie just told us that they have the scouting report. They know what they're supposed to do. The coaches do a good job, to quote her in particular, with that information. It's what they're going to do with it. And that's why Caitlin says this.
Yeah, I mean, I think that just speaks to what Lexie just said, our inconsistency, and that's on us. We know that, and we know we have to be better in that. And, we're going to find a way to fix it, certainly. But, we've showed glimpses of when we can do that and when we can beat the best teams in this league. And, I guess you can find that as a positive, but, you got to stop losing the ones that you're very capable of winning. And, Golden State's a really good team. They're well coached. They do things really well. They play everyone close. But I think we kind of shot ourselves in the foot. And even though we shot 30% and 22% from the field, yeah, that stinks. And we didn't make very many baskets across the board, other than really KK was really the only one to really shoot well. We can still find a way to win. Like, we got to get to the free throw line more. We got to do whatever it takes to find a way to win and not let that be deflating toward our defense.
Last one for me, Caitlin. What did you think of the way KK played and just the progress she's made throughout the season? In addition to the points and rebounds, she had 3 steals today as well.
Yeah, I think she's been tremendous. The athleticism that she has, she blocks shots, she gets her hands in passing lanes. And I think she's still navigating kind of how we're playing and figuring that out and getting minutes under her belt. But she's going to be a great asset for us as we go forward here. And I'm just really proud of her. She comes in every single day, works as hard as she can, is a great teammate. And when her number's been called, she's really produced. So it's really awesome to see the way she's playing. And I know she'll keep it up going forward.
I love to see that, to hear that, because Michaela, she did look pretty good out there. She made some bad decisions, but I mean, she was in for, I think, 20 minutes in this game, and she is learning and growing, as Caitlin is pointing out. Like, it's taking her some time, and I'm sure she sees what she sees in practice and things like that. But KK is, I just enjoy seeing her, like you guys in the live stream. I mean, everybody's like cheering on Michaela, let's go. And so it's great to see her be able to get out there, and the more that she's able to get out there, the more comfortable she's going to be. And I did see her be more aggressive in today's game. So that's good. And I'm glad that CC gave her props there. There was a really good play there with Caitlin to KK, CC to KK, and that's good. So she's going to grow. She's young. So that's great. Okay. So now I'm going to play a little bit. I'm not going to play all, I don't believe, of Stephanie White's comments, but we're going to get into what she had to say about what went down in this game.
Steph, they were coming in here talking about lack of focus, lack of knowing the game plan. How do you summarize kind of what you saw out there?
Got to stop there, because neither one of them said lack of knowing the game plan. That's not what they said. So that's a misquote.
No, I was disappointed because I felt like there was a lack of competitive fire. With the exception of about 2 5-minute spurts, our attention to detail was poor. I'm not sure if it's not knowing the game plan as much as, because if it's not knowing the game plan, then that's a whole nother conversation, as much as not executing the game plan. Our attention to detail, undisciplined. I felt like our energy and our competitive fire was not there, and that's disappointing.
I guess, why do you?
Now I'm going to stop here. I haven't read comments. I haven't heard or watched any other perspectives about this. I can just imagine that there are people who hear that and they say, wow, she threw her team under the bus. Now I'm going to say what I said during the live stream when I watched Becky Hammon talk about her team after her team lost in a big way to the Indiana Fever. She called out their lack of effort. And there were people who said she threw her team under the bus. Now, I'm not big on throwing the team under the bus. Sometimes you have bad shooting nights. Sometimes you don't get the 50-50 balls, as they say, some of those things. But I do have a serious problem with the lack of effort. And I don't have any problem saying they lacked competitive spirit, they lacked fire, they lacked effort. And if you're going to go out there as a professional basketball player, hey, even as a college basketball player or as a high school player, which is the level I coached on, if your effort's not there, then I got to call you out. Sorry. And I watched the game. And if you watch the game, you know what we knew in the live stream, at least those of us who watched the whole game. And that is there was a lack of effort in this game. Not only could they just not shoot the ball, and trust me, they had plenty of opportunities to hit shots. They had plenty of open shots that they could not make. Caitlin just told us what the shooting percentage was. So it's one thing when one person is off, but it seemed like everybody was off, missing shots, giving up rebounds, offensive rebounds at key points in the game, not having the intensity, or as Caitlin said, they were deflated. Whatever the situation was, to me, it was a lack of effort. And I believe that they deserve to be called out. Hey, I'm still Let's Go Fever. I'm still Team Fever. I'm not going to pretend that they went out there and competed like they could. They did not.
You think you had some of these inconsistencies when it comes to focus and engagement, things like that?
I'd say discipline more so than focus. I think this is a group that focuses, but you can focus and then you have to be able to go out and be disciplined enough to execute it, right? I'm not sure. We're as coaches, that's our job to figure it out. Why it is. You've seen it in spurts. You've seen it in moments. You've seen it with certain lineups. So finding those lineups that we've seen it with consistently and maybe keeping those together. There's always going to be adjustments when you're working people back into the lineup. There's no question about that. But the competitiveness and the attention to detail, and willingness to play with multiple levels of effort. Prime examples when we get defensive stops, but then they get multiple offensive rebounds. That's 1-2. That's competitive fire. And that's unacceptable.
And she's not lying. She's not lying. And as I point out in a couple live streams now, that is what separates your Angel Reese in the rebounding department from a lot of other people. And that is the want to. That is the going after it. That's the effort. And I watched situations in this game where the effort was lacking, severely lacking. When it comes to, at one point at the end of the game, you should have seen us in the chat. Like they gave up like 4 offensive rebounds in that one possession. You can't do that and win basketball games. You have to want the basketball. So to that, and I bring up Angel Reese because she obviously wants the basketball more than anybody else. So to rebound the basketball, you got to have, number one, a nose for the ball, right? Great rebounders have a nose for the ball, but you also have to have the grit to do the grunt work to go get the basketball. And I did not see that in the Fever today. Yes, their shots, weren't falling, and they had open shots. They had open opportunities. Even though the Valkyries were shutting them down in some ways, they were collapsing. Aaliyah wasn't able. She took 8 shots in this game. Not cool. They were collapsing, and then she kicked the ball out at times. And you know what? If you're not going to hit shots, they're not going to change. You have to make the defense pay. If they're going to collapse on somebody, if they're going to double somebody, if they're going to blitz somebody, they're going to trap, whatever it is, and somebody else obviously somebody else must be open then. And then if they get the ball and constantly miss shots, then they're not going to do anything different. As I said in the live stream, they don't do it much in the professional level, but in college or in high school, when people play a zone more often, they play a zone to force you to take outside shots. You start knocking them down, they're going to have to come out of the zone. If you're not knocking them down, hey, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. But you have to have the effort more than anything. Again, shots may not fall. The referee's calls may not go your way. But you should always come with a sense of pride and a sense of urgency. And the Fever absolutely didn't have it. Caitlin wasn't lying. Lexie wasn't lying. Stephanie White's not lying. There was an absolute lack of intensity. And honestly, they didn't deserve to win.
Yeah, you had that lineup change, kind of putting Caitlin in for Lexie instead of Ari. Just what did you like about Caitlin and Ari starting the game together and Lexie coming off the bench?
Yeah, I mean, I like the ability to have two primary ball handlers on the floor, particularly with a team that comes aggressively, in the two-man game. Being able to play off of one another, being able to give the opponent some different looks, and quite frankly, for C specifically, not having to have her play under duress 94 feet the entire time she's on the floor. So there were some things that we liked about it. There were some things that we don't. So we'll continue to work with that.
Okay, I'm going to stop there for now. Just listening to her, I wouldn't be surprised if they do something different the next time. I already talked about my original thoughts about that starting lineup, but I also understand why they did it. And of course, she explains it right here. You kind of under duress is an interesting way of saying it. And that is Caitlin Clark and the attention she gets and the grabbing she gets and the uptight, up close play that she gets. Trying to have another ball handler on the floor is smart. I get that. But it's going to take time. That's the thing. They have had situations that no other team has had. I'm not trying to make excuses because I make zero excuses for effort. Zero excuses for effort. But I also have to be realistic and understand that this is not normal circumstances for this team. They've had injuries, and other teams have had injuries too. But they had Caitlin in, Caitlin out. Caitlin in again. Caitlin out, Caitlin in again. They had at one time Sophie out. They had Sydney get hurt. They have personal matters from the coach, and then Dewana Bonner abandoning the team. And not just being waived, but I mean not showing up for work for a while. You know how I feel about that. So they've had Ari come in for the health contract situation, hardship contract, and she had to go, and then they brought her back, and now Caitlin and she are sharing the floor, and they never played together. I mean, now you've got to try to figure out how to rotate everybody in and out, and who, it all starts all over again. It has been constant adjustments and not having the whole team and together. And now, of course, you've had Dantas who left, and Dantas is back, and she was hurt before then, and she had a death in the family. And so it's been constant stuff. And now you're still trying to figure out who plays well together. And it unfortunately, as much as we don't like the word experimenting, it's going to take some experimenting. That part, it is what it is, and you can't control that part. You can do your best to try to figure out what works well, but the part you can't control is your effort. You've got to give maximum effort if you're trying to compete in this league. And I don't know about you, I didn't see that in this game. And I'm not just talking about missed shots, missed bunnies, bad defense at times. There's that, which keeps you from being able to run. There's that, and that's all. That's effort too. The defensive intensity you come with. So those are just my thoughts. I'm gonna leave it there with Coach White's comments, and I just wanted to give you my reaction because, like I said, they played during the day, which gave me a lot more time to think about this. But they have to move on. And like I said the night before, that it was going to be quite a matchup. Both teams were 9-9 coming into this game, their record. And I said one team's going to be above 500 when it's over. One team's going to be beneath 500 when it's over. And that beneath, well, that went to the Indiana Fever. So now they got to try to fight to get back to 500 and then fight again to get over 500. And you dig a hole, then you got to find a way to climb out of it. One of the things I was told my players is that I mean, I never like to talk about losing at all. But one thing I did say was that no matter what happens, you will be the best conditioned team on the floor, and you will not ever lose because of a lack of effort. Not a lack of effort, not a lack of preparation, not a lack of conditioning, not a lack of giving it everything. If you lose because the other team was the better team that day, not because you were the team that gave the worst effort. And I feel like that's what happened. So it's onward and upward. Me to blame the coaching staff and all this stuff. I'm not even going there. People can say whatever they want to say. I'm going to say what I see, what I believe. And I saw a team that didn't have the effort, that came out with the effort. So speaking of that, even having those two in the starting lineup, Ari and Caitlin, they started out really well. It just fizzled really fast. But I know what I saw. And what I saw was a team that lacked effort, lacked intensity, lacked the ability to rebound the basketball at key moments in the game, could not hit the side of a barn with a BB gun, okay, could not shoot the basketball, and once again, did not have the effort needed. And no matter what, professional players have to bring that. So I'm sure you'll get plenty of narrative out there. You're going to get from me exactly what I see. And I just told you what that is. So I will catch you next time, God willing. God bless you abundant.